Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot for April 8th. So, I've been trying to understand, and it could be a thankless job, but I've been trying to understand what it is and why it is that Trump will just not kind of back down. Why he persists in the sort of aggressive behavior that he is demonstrating, and the obtuse and the bullying behavior he's demonstrated it his whole life, and he's demonstrated it his whole presidency. But it feels very much like the events of the last little while have really amplified that basic behavior. I mean, he is taking on reporters left, right, and center. If you're a woman, he's likely to call you nasty. Men, he calls them losers, and you're never going to make it. What is that? I mean, yeah, you know what? You can brush it off and say it's his insecurity, it's this or that, but there has to be something going on with him that just sort of doesn't allow him to react in any other ways than the ways I want to say he always has. Maybe he's always gotten away with it. So I just wanted to take a little bit of a deep dive into how Trump is coping right now, and what's the backstory behind the persistent behavior. What's going on with him? So come on down, because I have a question. So, why does Trump persist? Why does Trump persist? Why does Trump persist? Nope. Nice that he showed up. Okay. So, here we go. Let's start. There is so much stuff about Donald Trump that Donald Trump doesn't understand. He does not have the ability for introspection or self-reflection, and to a large degree, he does not even have the capacity to look at a situation and think, even in the privacy of his own mind, wow, I could have handled that better, or I could have said that differently, or maybe if I had done this, then that. That component, that aspect of his personality that, frankly, most of us are blessed with, and in some cases cursed with, because it won't shut up. He just doesn't have that going on. And so for him, everything in his world boils down to, what can I get? And who do I have to screw to get it? What makes me look good? And who or what is going to amplify my standing? How do I get adulation, love, compliments, praise? And what behavior do I need to demonstrate in order to continue to keep that coming? And unfortunately for him, in that last instance, the behavior that he figured out that he needed to keep behaving like was bullying and aggressive and in your face. Because, see, this is the thing. He doesn't actually care if the adulation is sincere. He doesn't care if he actually has to terrorize it out of people. He only cares that it continues to get fed. For him, these needs are like a hunger or like a thirst that he can never satisfy. And that really does appear to be what drives him. He has absolutely no ability for self-reflection. None. And I'm showing you this card sort of upside down, right? Because he doesn't have this. He's completely missing it. That's why the card looks this way. It's missing. And when things look like they're ending, and they're not ending within his control, the behavior amplifies and it becomes more and more aggressive. And that is how come if you try to leave him, if you try to distance yourself from him, if you don't support every little whim and thought that he has, he is going to jump on you and charge and get rid of you and push you away before you have the chance to do that to him. There really, really is this sense of, I have to control all of the endings of my life, because if I don't, I'm going to be subject to less love, less adulation, fewer compliments. So I have to always put myself in the position of ending it first, right? And that is how come when somebody asks him a question at a press conference that he doesn't like, his immediate reaction is to cut them off and push them away. You're nasty. You're a loser. I don't like you. You don't belong here. Whatever nonsense spews out of that mouth of his, because it is the only way he actually has figured out through the course of his long, long life to cope. He actually doesn't appear to have any other significant coping methods. That is why partnerships and friendships to him are so important. They're only important, of course, until as long as he's getting his ego fed, his needs fed. At the point where he is not, that is when you get pushed away. And that is why, I am great friends with China. One of my, wonderful friends in the UK, the strong man, whoever, from whatever country, everything with him becomes personalized. There is not a sense of objectivity. So again, that is where you get this persistent pushing back aggressiveness, because it really does seem to be the only coping mechanism he seems to have been able to develop, is this illusion, these delusions of these wonderful friendships, these people who admire him, who respect him. And you know what? That is a game, honestly, that he got away with playing for a really, really long time, because people were not anxious to confront him and take him on, right? People were not anxious to let it be known that they thought he was unsuccessful, or they thought he was not very smart, or they thought this, that, or the other, because for whatever reason, that sort of aggressive bullying really seemed to be able to keep a large number of people and situations in line over the course of his life. I have to tell you, the energy I'm picking up at this point, I would honestly be scared to be near him when he was in a fit of temper, because he has no ability to rein it in. He is really like a tornado, right? Where he gets whipped up and he spins and spins. He doesn't care what destruction there is. And in reality, there's nothing you can do to fight against a tornado except to let it run its course and pick up the pieces after it had been destroyed. And that really seems to be the emotional component that makes up this man. And so, for those poor people who see him and work with him behind closed doors, who have to have difficult conversations with him, it is really, really a force to be reckoned with. And because of that, people are simply not anxious to repeat the experience. And so, what happens is they start altering their behavior so that they can keep the tornado at bay. And while that was, to whatever degree, a successful ploy that he used up until the time he decided to run for the presidency, it, of course, is a complete and total failure as a president, because the leader of a country needs to be about the law. He needs to be about the rules, about protocols, about keeping things moving forward smoothly and comfortably. And he's not about that. He's about destroying everything in his path the absolute nanosecond he thinks that somebody doesn't agree with him. And what has happened as a result of the current crisis is that, frankly, he's getting more and more questions that he doesn't like. He is being asked to explain himself. And that is absolutely infuriating him, not only because he doesn't like being questioned, but moreover, in that moment, he doesn't know the answer. He doesn't have an answer. And so he lashes out. He bullies, he insults. That is the persistent behavior with him. He doesn't have another almost button to push. He doesn't have another game to play. He is that sort of one-dimensional. Now, because he is that one-dimensional, we sort of like to think that he is trapped in a world of his own making, of his own illusions and delusions, because his eyes are covered and he surrounds himself with protection, literally. And of course, it's not unusual at all for the devil card to come up for him, because that really does talk about the backwards way in which he sees things, the sort of lower vibrational energy that he is drawn to. He really would rather cheat somebody than be fair with them. He really rather would just write everybody off as stupid so that he can be smart. Like, those things and those perceptions that we have about him are absolutely, absolutely accurate. And they ultimately are going to bring down his downfall. For any of you who are at all concerned about Trump, kind of getting into office again, I'm here to tell you, and of course, nothing's said in concrete, but I'm here to tell you that energetically, it really, really doesn't look that that's going to be a likely outcome, simply because as the destruction continues to fall upon the United States, more and more, he is going to be called to task about what he did, what his government did, why they did it. And there comes to a point where the lies are so egregious, the behavior is so demonic that you can no longer just write it off as a personality quirk. I mean, in some ways, I really think that one of the biggest disservices that was done to the American people during the time that Trump was running for the presidential nomination was that somehow there was a message sent to Trump that when he doubled down, I mean, come on, that is a phrase that nobody flipping used, okay, until Donald Trump came on the scene. And now everybody talks about doubling down continually. Somehow he was given the message, and I'm sorry, but there are media outlets who are responsible for that. There are campaign officials who are responsible for that. There are the other people who were running against him who are responsible for that, because no one ever said to him, why do you think that doubling down is the only way to handle a situation? Why is it the only way to deal with a problem? Nobody questioned him. And because of that, he saw that as a really brilliant emotional strategy. And I'm not saying that it wasn't part of what he did and how he behaved for all of his life. Of course it was. But it became amplified when he figured out that people in some kind of crazy way were going to see that as a strength, as an asset, as opposed to a deterrent. And there's a lot of blame to go around for how that became an admirable trait. But because it did, and that brought him adulation, it made him more famous. People more and more, people were talking about him. He understood that that was a brilliant strategy. And at no time did anybody say, it's not. And you shouldn't behave that way. And why do you think the people of America want a president who lashes out at every turn? But that wasn't sort of pushed to the forefront. What was pushed to the forefront was, I'm going to get you better health care than you've ever seen before. I'm going to give you tax breaks like you've never seen before. Well, honest to God, that really is truth, because there really were tax breaks given to a lot of very rich people, the likes of which had never been seen before. I'm going to make sure that your Medicare, etc., is not touched. In fact, I'm going to make it better because I'm the only one. And nobody pulled him back on the carpet. Nobody. And because of that, he saw that as his strength, and he now will not let go of it. And I'm not saying that he actually had a whole bunch of other tools in his toolbox, because he didn't, and he doesn't. But it was a particularly egregious behavior that simply was somehow turned into an asset. And because he sees that as what brought him success, he's going to continue to use it literally, even as his world falls apart, and even as the country that he is supposed to be leading falls apart. Because again, he doesn't see it as leading, he sees it as ruling. And when you rule, you are not to be questioned. It all plays into that same sort of mental dynamic that goes on in his, honestly, it's not only in his head, but it's like in his heart. It connects so strongly to his feelings about himself, and his worth and his value. So it persists. Oh, look, and here we have the other trump card. So you can see that in very quick order, we were presented with the Devil, the Tower, the King of Pentacles, of course, and now the Fool. So you have some really strong cards coming out explaining that because he stays in this cocooned, blind state that he stays in, he persists because nobody has told him that's not a good strategy, because they're scared of the blowback. They're scared of, Tornado Trump. And so it is allowed to continue as the destruction continues. And what has happened is people who work around him, okay? It's really simple the way they sort of see things. Either you work quietly and diligently behind the scenes to continue to promote what he thinks, feels, and believes. You continue to present things in an incredibly unbalanced way, because that is the only thing he will accept, or you leave. And if you don't leave of your own volition, he's going to get you to leave. And look, here we have it. Death and the Wheel of Fortune. So again, this talks about exactly the dynamic that he is now living in and sort of playing around with, honestly, because it's the only one he has. So why does he keep persisting? Because it's all he knows how to do, because he sees it as his protection, because nobody will correct him. And so when he says really crazy things, he just gets away with it. And like when Dr. Fauci corrects him, he'll put up with it once or twice, and then he just tells the good doctor, you don't need to answer this question. I'll answer it for you, because I'm the stable genius. I'm the smart one. And I'm the one that wants the whole world to go take a drug that's designed for lupus and malaria, to fight this, even though there's actually no scientific, and again, I did hear, I don't know if it's true or not, but I did hear that he has bought interest or stocks in the company that manufactures that drug. I don't know if that's true or not, but it certainly would explain his great enthusiasm for the product. He doesn't care if it works. He only cares that he benefits, and he only cares that it changes the subject, so that instead of him being the guy with all the bad news, he is the guy soft selling it. He is the guy spinning out hope. It's all about him, and it's always going to be about him. And, more than that, it really is about his money, his finances, his assets. It's about him being top of the heap. It really is. He sees that as his strength, and so he will talk and he will spin and he will do whatever he has to do to keep those things hidden that do not reflect well for him. So as things continue to spin out, certainly in the next while, you are going to continue to see not only his behavior becoming even more doubled down, even more stuck, more rigid, more unable to even tolerate a suggestion that somebody is saying something that is opposite to what he wants the conversation to be about. That there's going to be that real pushback. He's going to become even more so. And he's going to continue to spin these stories, because he has started to finally figure out that his handling of this pandemic is actually going to be what his re-election hinges on. He understands that, make no mistake. And because of that, he needs to balance it. He needs to find a story. He needs to turn justice, so justice will do his bidding. And he doesn't understand that justice doesn't do that. But he sure is going to try. And so he can't tolerate any more bad press. He can't tolerate any more difficult questions. And so the pushback, the erratic, the kind of crazy is going to continue to spew. Okay, and it's going to get ramped up because the more bad news there is, the more he's going to try to spin it, and it's really, really not going to work. He is just charging ahead. He doesn't care. And I mean, I think in some ways that really is the tragedy, right? Is he's not even capable of caring the number of people who have died, whose lives have been really damaged, who have been hurt, who are going to carry continual health problems as a result of this. He doesn't care. It's all about moving him forward to his next goal. And his next goal, of course, is winning the election. That's his dream. That's his motivation. And he really doesn't care how mercenary he has to be to get it. He really doesn't. And you know what? If that was true a year ago, it was more true 6 months ago. And it was more true yesterday than it was 6 months ago. So it continues to accelerate. And as a country, you are literally in the hands of a crazy person. And a great deal of the correction, the opportunity for course correction, is going to come about over the next several months. And it doesn't look like he is going to be able to spin it well enough to bring him the victory. The things that he has said, the lies he has told, are going to pile up and pile up and pile up, because people have finally figured out that listening to him is a waste of time, energy, and good hearing. Okay? And so all of the lies, all of the mistruths are being kept track of, and at some point, it's going to be such a monumental job to clear them out of the way so he can have that victory he is so looking for. That it's almost going to be impossible, and I'm still not getting a lot of energy. I still don't feel like he may necessarily be around on kind of when the fall comes. And I'm not getting any clarity, I have to tell you, on what may get him to leave the office, but it definitely feels like something's going to come down the pike for him. So you have the Ace of Swords and you have the Ace of Cups. So you're talking about truth and clarity, strength, and you're talking about emotions. So what is more emotional than people being sick, people being dying, people reacting to the fact that they are being lied to with every single statement that comes out of his mouth, and frankly, a lot of his flunkies' mouths, okay? And that brings judgment to him. That brings the Tower. And that puts an end to the behavior that you're now living with, dealing with, and seeing. Okay? It's about the money, people. It's always going to be about the money. He is going to get caught eventually. There's going to be clarity that comes to the situation. I don't know. I can't say yes, he's absolutely going to have to pay back every cent. I honestly don't think that's going to happen. But I do think that one of the things that he really cares about, which is the Trump brand, that is going to be significantly and seriously damaged. And so he persists. The behavior that you have witnessed for 3.5 years is exactly what you're going to see going forward, but it's going to be on steroids, because the more frightened he becomes about the fact that he's not going to win the election, the more he gets called on the carpet and doesn't have answers, the more aggressive comes the behavior. And just as a really interesting aside, it is not at all surprising to me that one of the states that he is lashing out against with such anger and hatred is New York, because New York rejected him. New York made it very well known that they didn't want to vote for him. They knew what he was, and they didn't want to see him in office. He rejected them, and when he moved and made his home base Mar-a-Lago, that was him slamming the door shut on New York. What he didn't count on was the fact that New York not only has, New York City has a really great mayor, but so do other cities and areas within the state of New York. There's some really good leaders there. And he really, really did not expect Governor Andrew Cuomo to sort of rise the way he did. He really thought that he could keep insulting him, and that was going to, work for him, right? Because let's face it, it worked for how many was it? 16, 18 other presidential nominees who were in the running? It worked to get rid of all of them, because none of them, not one newspaper person, not one media outlet, said, why do you think, doubling down and being such a bully are the exact traits that this country needs for a president? Nobody asked him the question, so he interpreted it as praise. There you have it. There you have it. So we now know why he persists, and we now know what you can expect in the coming days, weeks, and months. Energetically, it feels like more and more media outlets are going to continue to minimizing the amount of exposure he continues to get with these daily pep rallies, these daily sessions of misinformation and lies. And hopefully that will continue, because, and this is the thing, right? This is the thing. As soon as they stop covering them, end to end live, he's going to stop doing them, because there's no benefit to him. And so the sooner they stop, maybe the sooner that Americans can get some honest, straight answers, and frankly, some real, accurate numbers. Because I think that a lot of those numbers are being a little bit underreported. Okay, there we have it. Okay, until next time, take care, be well, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.